Hey everybody, what is going on? It is your boy Izl33 welcoming you back to the Anarchy Analysis Spring Split Predictions. We are entering week number 3 with 15 games on the docket as usual. Alongside this, we've got the results from last weekend, which we'll get into right now. Oh, thank goodness for day 1, which we technically predicted as day 2. 5 out of 5 for that. As for the other 2 days, not so good. Day 2, technically, it was 1 out of 5. We only picked up the Fnatic Team Heretics game. And the other one being day 3, we got 2 out of 5, giving us a total of 8 out of 15, which is one worse than last weekend. But regardless of that, let's jump into this weekend's predictions. We've rapid fired through day 2. We've rapid fired through a day 3. Let's rapid fire through day 1. Why not? Let's go for it. BDS XL is our opening game and we have gone with BDS. SK Team Heretics, I've gone with SK. Fnatic versus Astralis, I have gone with Astralis. I was about to say Fnatic there. Vitality Koi, I've gone with Vitality. And Mad versus G2, a usual kickoff game to the split. Ending it out for G2 here with a win is my prediction. Let's move into day 2 already. Oh boy. We kick day 2 off with SK taking on the Mad Lions. This is going to be interesting because Mad are kind of on a slump this split. Actually performing pretty bad as a team who kind of was experimenting week 1. You could see it with the Niski picks, the Vigar and the Gragas, and also some other things that have been picked up by Mad. But week 2, you would have thought they'd go to a bit more of a solid setup. They only picked up 1 win in that week. And it's pretty surprising to me that they've lost nearly every game and only won 2 games this entire split. They're on the verge of not making playoffs, and with Fnatic actually ramping up as a team, and I think will be a very tough opponent on the last day for Mad now, that's actually going to be a playoff decider. I just realized that's going to be a good matchup. But yeah, my prediction here is SK winning. The team has been phenomenal this split. They looked great in winter. Coming into spring, they've just stepped it up a little bit more. They're pressing their advantage as well, and just being, without a doubt, one of the best teams this split, hands down. Yes, they probably have and will be stomped by G2 in the last game. That may not be what I predicted, but I think SK as a whole, that'll be their do-or-die match the last game of the day. I think they're going to beat Mad here. I just think they're clinically more decisive with their drafting. It's matchup of the week time as BDS take on Koi. Oh boy, let's get into this one as these 2 teams are vying for a top 4 spot this split, and I'm really looking forward to them clashing on the Rift. I'm going to be honest, this spring split, Shigenda has kind of stepped up for Koi in comparison to his winter form, but the bot lane of Koi is struggling, and it has been struggling all year, along with Maoran kind of struggling, and they're going against BDS here. BDS, if you don't know, have been very strong bot side with Crowny and Lebrov, I should say, performing exceptionally as a duo. Now here, I think this is going to go to Koi this matchup, but you have to think about this logically. Koi are going to be stepping up here as they ramp up into playoffs, and their last game of the week is against XL. I'm personally really looking forward to it, but right now, against BDS, it's going to be close. I think Shigenda is going to have a bit of a fun time against Adon, who has kind of shown a bit more flexibility with his pool this split. It's not these wacky off-zany picks. He is picking more carry-orientated things like Jax and Fiora coming into that top lane. But BDS here, probably will lose out on their top 4 spot lock-in chances as they face off against Koi. Astralis XL is the 3rd game of day 2, and it's the first time we're actually going to discuss the changes going on with XL. I've written down here XL will win against Astralis, just because I, for some reason, expect Astralis to kind of choke this weekend away, although they pick up a win against Fnatic, as you heard earlier. I think XL are in a bit of a rough spot. They're kind of yikes at the moment, because literally today, while I was finishing work, they've parted ways with their assistant coach. VTO, the spring MVP from last year, is no longer on the roster. Instead, they've got Abadage, who is no slouch of a player. Let's be honest, he is talented. But you have to realize and think about it this way. Abba's been absent from Professional League for at least 2 months now. And VTO, while not the problem, I would say, with XL, he's been taken out at the wrong time, I feel. I'd rather have let this XL squad be pulled, like, go all the way this split. Because looking at last weekend, they won against Mad. They lost against Heretics, which is and they lost to SK. Okay, looking at that, they lost their close battle with Heretics. That's the team that they needed to beat. They beat the other team they needed to beat at the start of the split in Fnatic. And here, going into this week with, I would say, a really rough set of games. Obviously teams that are kind of above them and more than likely are locking either top 4 or top 6 of the LEC. I'm genuinely thinking that this squad may not last together long. If, in my opinion, this is a strong opinion, I don't know how the contracts were formed. Obviously for some of these players, I think XL approached and the teams that own the players did not want them anymore. I mean, obviously Misfits is a different category of fish, because let's be honest, they don't exist anymore, so VTO came quite easily to them. You've then got Odo, who was probably a dominant top still on Koi. I could have seen him still playing there. And personally, while not saying that Shigenda's the problem for Koi, I could genuinely see Koi getting Odo back in, or Odo retiring. That's the other option that I think is the least likely. I could see Koi getting Odo back and reaffirming their top lane position. To be fair, you look at the former Koi top laners they've had Finn, he's performing really well on Astralis, and Odo performing, I mean, he is one of the better performing players on XL. And yeah, I could definitely see him coming back. I don't know why I've gone into this tangent, probably because I saw it's Koi XL the last game for both these two teams, for them two teams. But yeah, Astralis XL, I've gone with XL. I think there'll be a honeymoon period slightly for ABBA, but I do think making these changes is slightly either too late or too early, because you haven't finished a split, and I think that the XL would have probably have made top 8 genuinely with VTO in the lineup. That's just me though. But let's move into our 4th game of the day. The 4th game of the day is Vitality versus Heretics. This is going to be an interesting one to discuss because Heretics have found a bit of form. Let's be honest, they picked up a couple of wins last weekend, beating Mad, beating XL, and also losing to Fnatic, but we don't talk about that. They are, in fact, needing to win this game against a Vitality who dropped games for the first time this split against G2, and also they dropped against the other team, Astralis. So, how do we say this? Heretics kind of have been Yankos this split. Evi's been a bit sussy, been a sussy baka, and Ruby kind of has struggled. He's been caught out several times by playing lane a bit too over-aggressive on control mages like Victor. We haven't really seen how big Ruby's pool is yet. We know he's got a Cassio, we know he's got a Victor. Azir has fallen out of meta quite heavily, so will we see new champions for this team? I think they might need it in order to kind of deal with it. I think, didn't he play Yone as well? I'm just thinking about it. They did try experimenting last week. Regardless, let's just say this right here, right now. I think Vitality will win, but Yankos probably will try and carry Heretics to the win. Simple. And finally, for day number 2, it's a matchup of the week. For some, it's Fnatic G2. I guess we talk about this in some depth, because Fnatic are looking to be back slightly. They had a pretty good week last week, picking up 2 of the 3 games. And, you know, they weren't the easiest of games to win. They just, Razork dominated the Koi game, and then a bit more of a Oscarin game in the Heretics one kind of set them up for victory, even though I think Evi was a bit troll in that one. Regardless, this game against G2 is no easy matchup. And if you're a Fnatic fan, I mean, let's be honest, the ground or the stage has this year been heavily G2 favoured in terms of the crowd. Here I think there may be a bit more of a fight back. Fnatic are in dire stitches to get into playoffs, and against G2, match of the week, you know there's going to be a bit of a party fever in the crowd, and I think we'll hear it from them because they want to will this team into the actual groups. They missed playoffs for the first time in the organization's history last split. Here, against G2, I don't think they're gonna do it. I think G2 will win this one. G2 need a bounce back week, and the reason I say that is because they had it pretty hard in week number 2. Even though they beat Vitality, they still lost to Koi and won to BDS. Never mind, what am I on about? I think G2 is struggling for some goddamn reason. They usually throw a game, let's say that. That's the easiest way to say it. They'll throw a game here and there. I thought that their week 2 was kind of weak. I haven't been too hot on G2 this split, even though everyone seems to be. I don't know, it's just me. Regardless, I think here against Fnatic they'll win, but I think Fnatic probably will throw the kitchen sink at G2 just so that they can claw a victory, but I don't think it'll be enough. Day number 3. Let's kick it off with Vitality BDS. 2 French squads. I think this was also one of the finals for the LFL quite recently, to be honest. But regardless of that, let's discuss this one with a bit of detail. I think we're going to get a bit of a banger here. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker across the rift, and I just personally think expect some wackiness in terms of picks. Vitality, I think by the end of this week, or by the end of week day 2, will have locked top spot, or top 2. I don't know how the standings will work, obviously, but BDS are one of their closest competitors. I expect them to kind of experiment for their last game. solely because it's sort of one of them games that, like, okay, we may be facing you in playoffs or groups, as whatever you want to call it. Let's just experiment, not show our hand. Let's just try and see how far we can push you in an attempt to kind of gauge their strength. That's how I think it'll go. Because need I remind you that Vitality last split went out early in groups. They lost to Koi, and they lost to another team. I think they lost to Mad as well. But yeah, here, I think Vitality will win. But don't be surprised if BDS pull a scrappy comeback win. Team Heretics taking on Astralis. Spoiler alert, this is the second time I'm recording it, because the first time I literally went off topic. We'll skip that topic, probably save it for another video, but here, this game has a lot to discuss, because it's arguably a battle for top 8, as Heretics need as many wins as possible. They need to win all 3 games, basically, this weekend, to kind of lock themselves in. And Astralis, they need to win a couple more themselves to lock in playoffs. So this game is pretty much do or die. I'm gonna say it's do or die for both teams. I think Heretics will win. I just think there's a bit of a jungle gap between these two teams. And Yankos is a dominant player, and I think he'll try to leverage the champion pool that Leader has shown to split. Leader has been very creative. He's brought a new freshness to the league. The Aurelias, the Yones, he's even playing Aurelian Soul, which is kind of shocking, to be honest, because that just doesn't, in my mind, stick in his wheelhouse, unless it's kind of his replacement Rise. But here, I think Yankos probably will show why he is the Western GOAT of junglers. Without a doubt, I think he'll try and affect his mid lane heavily, unlock Ruby, who I want to see on more roaming heavy picks. I don't like his Victor or his Casio that he's played this year. I want him on something like a TF, Rise even, Talia, something that can roam so that Heretics can kind of play it a bit more freely. I want freedom in this team, but they haven't shown it at all this year, and I kind of want to see that growth. Honest, I think Koi will win. Odo versus his former team is kind of the storyline here for me, and you know, I think Koi are going to come swinging this week. I want some spice from them. I want something that kind of forces teams, like it did last split, not to pick them as an opening matchup. That's something that we need to consider. Is after this week we're straight into groups, and the group draw usually is after this day. Teams will go in and say, "Oh, I think we'll play Koi," or "Oh, I think we'll play Excel." I think here Koi will win. I just think they'll exploit mid. Maorang has got this tendency to do a strange level 3 gank or level 2 gank mid. He's done it all year round. He did it last year. I think he'll come in here, use that play on Abba, who hasn't faced him yet. No, he hasn't. He has not faced Maorang before. I think that surprise factor to Abba will be a big thing for Koi. And yes, I know XL can coach the player. He'll have definitely seen Maorang's play. They'll follow his paths. They know everything about him in that sense. But I think when you get into an actual game experience and everything gets thrown out the window, I think Maorang will find an advantage mid for Larson and get Koi playing the map early. Larson last week showed he can play roaming picks like the TF, something we haven't seen from him at all in his career. I don't think he's been more of the strong control style mage player. he's not known for his melee-orientated picks. I mean, he can play a Silas quite well, but the rest of them, the likes of the Yone Yasuos, you've never seen him play it in pro play. We were shocked when he pulled out a LeBlanc last year in the summer finals, because that's just not his playstyle. It's more assassin orientated. So here, I think we'll see Koi show something. I think they'll play to their strengths and beat out Exa. Fnatic Mad is the 4th game of the day. Let's go with a pretty much do or die game for both teams. Win and you're pretty much guaranteed playoffs or groups, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to keep calling it playoffs by accident because I hate the new format. Haha. But let's just say it this way. I think Fnatic will win just because I think Mad this split have kind of struggled with drafts, and that's purely because when you look at their drafting, they've kind of tried to do too much. They're not securing enough strong picks, and they're being punished quite heavily. I think Hilly hasn't had the best split this time. He has shown more of his death split, where he always dies, instead of the split last time, where he never died. And that's a huge contrast to last split, and we're kind of seeing it take effect here for Mad, because the playstyle is kind of different. There's not the same feel about this Mad team going into groups. And last split, Chasey started to ramp up around this point. I think he may try to do that here against a rookie top laner who hasn't had the best of splits. In fact, is he the only rookie coming in this split? I mean, I think he's pretty much guaranteed rookie at the split at this point. Yeah. Advian, leader. Advian, leader. Abadage now. They're the only switches. Oscarin's the only rookie in the split. So he's one rookie in the split, without a doubt. I'm gonna already say it, then. It's the rookie of the split versus probably the all-pro top from last split during playoffs. Hands down, best top. Nothing else to say but that. And I think Oscarin had a bit of a good time last week on his Jace. He had kind of calmed his nerves on stage, and as such, I kind of expect him to possibly pull that pick out again into probably Chasey's Fiora and dominate that matchup. That's the thought line on this game, and you know, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Let's move into our last game of the day though. SKG2 rounds out this weekend, and I said at the start of the video, SK versus G2 will probably decide top 2. It's either SK or Vitality being the other team in this battle with G2 for top spot. Koi are on the outside now. It's a lot harder for them to make it in, but here and now, SK, I think, will win against G2. This is just one of them gut feeling sort of predictions that I have randomly, like last week, Fnatic beating Koi, because for some reason they always beat Koi, and also Fnatic beating out Heretics. Just randomly picking Fnatic seems to work for me sometimes. You know, that's how it is. But here, it's just one of them things. I think SK, who probably have a very rough record against G2. In fact, I don't know or think I've seen in playoffs G2 versus SK. That might be going back a while, if that has happened. But here, this matchup, the reason I've gone with SK, let's get into some in detail. SK, personally, here, I think Irrelevant is top gapping a lot of opponents this split, and probably going into G2, who probably will try to flex on that sort of strength that SK have, and kind of target it a little with Yike, who I'm not saying has had the strongest of splits, but he isn't playing what got G2 success last split. It's a lot less of the Lilias and the carry-orientated picks and more so the facilitating picks. Something Caps was doing a lot more in winter, I should point out. Here, I think what we'll see is Broken Blade, who hasn't had the strongest split either, will probably get a lot of attention from G2. I expect TF to be picked up for Caps. The reason I say that is because Koi Larson has been playing it to success of his own and targeting the sides, which he did against G2 himself, and you saw him go up top and put Broken Blade behind and allow Shigenda to carry the game. That's what I expect here from G2. I expect a TF pick to come in and destroy SK. That's how I see it. If I'm wrong, I'll eat a sock. I'll do it on my stream, because I know I won't. I'll do it not this week, but next week on stream. Because this week, we've got to break down Vitality Astralis from last weekend. Be sure to check that out. But as I am kind of outroing myself out by talking about my stream, let's go with the outro right now. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have enjoyed these predictions, leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new around here if you want to. And I will see you guys on Sunday for Vitality Astralis. Peace out.